how this works is you pump this up and you're supposed to see when it opens. And what you do is you go up closely and slowly until it pops. And this one happens to be popping too high. So this particular one wants to be opening at 2200 psi. We don't want that. We want them to be opening around 1950 or around the 2000 mark. And we're going to take the pieces apart. Really, we can leave the bottom piece in. Okay. So our original thickness washer was 1.5 millimeters. That was too much. That was opening up at 2200 psi. Now we know that our 1 millimeter was too small. So we have some smaller shims here. They add up to 37 or 130. That's a difference of 0.2 millimeters, a hair. So let's actually try this. We're going to put this in here. Make sure they lay flat. When you're putting this back together, make sure your push rod is in the proper orientation. And then what I do is I kind of do this on a slant. I push on it and tighten it down. I won't show it, but I'm going to torque it down, and the next part you're going to see is it on the test stand. Okay, so this is now with the 0.28 shim in it. So we first started with the original 1.5 millimeter shim, and we were opening up at 2200. We want to be popping around just shy of 2000 on this gauge. Jack her up here. See the pressure go up. We want a nice, steady pop pressure. Okay, we're back past 1200, which is great. We keep climbing. Oh, it is popping currently at 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want that. That's too easy. Okay, back to the spacers. The original gap was 148. I almost wonder if we just need just a touch under 148. Not much. That's too thick now. Take this off. Let's see what this is. There's 144. We'll try that. That's just a very, very minute difference, but we will try it. And makes it to about just in between about the little line and the big bold line, which is exactly where we want it. It's actually releasing at 1950, which is the specification. The heat shields shown here in the bottom of the hole is seen right here. All you need is a pick, kind of like this. Nothing special. Get down and pick up. It's literally a washer. Comes out like that. Now let's take a look at what this looks like up close. Alright, this is the side facing us and the engine, and then the dirty side is the side facing the cylinder. Now can you run without a one of these? I'm going to say yes you can, until it burns up your injectors. I highly recommend that you do not run without this. The next question is, can I just reuse it? The answer is yes, you can reuse it. Once again, however, you may burn up your injectors over time. So, let's take a look at a new one. Here is a new one. Now, I know there's going to be a little bit of difference. Here's a new one. So first of all, the question that's going to come up is, well, the new one has a bigger inner diameter than the old one. I know that. You can no longer, or you can no longer buy the smaller diameter. And what I've read is this was a kind of a special part, and this part is the only one you can buy, and works just as well as this one with no issues. So how does it kind of work? So let me grab an injector. Okay, so here's an injector. Let's take the old one. When this is in the engine and the injector is tightened up towards it, let's zoom in so we can see. The injector is tightened towards it. It creates a seal. It creates a seal between, see this shiny metal surface and this duller surface. There's a crack in there. It creates a seal between there and there. So it doesn't allow any of the hot gases to get up inside of the housing. Now, the new one, if you dry fit the new one, you're going to find that there's going to be a little bit of a gap. See that? Let's see if that'll focus. See how you can see my finger behind it? See that gap? Well, when you tighten it down, it's going to force it together, creating a steel on steel seal. And that's how that's going to work. Right, just like that. Now, reinstalling it. So this is a good chance to also look down. What you're going to see there is there's part of the cylinder, and then closer to the bottom of the hole, that little nub, that is the glow plug. And then you want to inspect the shiny surface of where that washer is going to go. We're going to clean that up a little bit. We don't want any like contamination between the washer and the injector. Get down in there. Now, I must reiterate this. During this entire process, take your time. There's absolutely no rush. If you rush, it won't be good. So, we talked about the importance of the heat washer and the correct orientation it needs to be, and the cleanliness of the injector hole before we can put that washer in, and then keeping it clean so we can put the injector body in. Now we are ready for torquing the injector body. Now I'm going to point this out. Remember early on in video number 1 when we were removing the black return lines, I pointed out that make sure you take a picture of which way these return lines are oriented on each of the injectors. You remember that? Okay. Well, knowing that, luckily I took a picture, so I don't have to remember. And I have a picture up right now. So we are ready to torque these in place. Get this socket down. This is an 1/1/16 socket. The torque specification is I think 52 to 59 foot-pounds. Slowly take it to 50, and then I'm just going to remove it. I'm kind of curious where those return lines are. It looks like they're up and down, and normally this should work just right. It should, because that's how it was. Normally those should be quite like that. Right now they're like that, so I'm hoping in the next 5 foot-pounds we move them just a little bit more. There's 55 right there. Well, that's a little better, but it's not quite like it was. I have a feeling that it's not going to be like it was, just based on the new, that's 50, that's 55. I really don't want to go much tighter than that. That's a specification. So, maybe, and I'm learning as I'm talking to you right now, maybe that's not a realistic thing to take it to that location. We're going to take it to the specification. The specification is very important. Who really cares about the return lines? They're flexible, right? So maybe that was not a good idea to make a video of that. Well, that's how we learn, right? Putting the return lines then. Now, this one, I'm gonna go from here, and they just slide on. So you want to make sure they're all the way in, they don't pull out, and that especially if you gotta cut them shorter, make sure there's no crimp connections, like it bent off. Well, last thing we want is something like that in there, because that's gonna be a problem. With the return lines installed, we can install the hard lines. So what we did to protect the injection pump from anything going into it, we put these paper towels on top. I'm gonna remove those. Now, before we go ahead and put things together, this is a good time to inspect some plumbing. Now, this plumbing right here, this is a supply line for the injection pump, and then also this is a good time to do your glow plugs. My glow plugs are good, so I'm not going to do any work to them, but this is the best time is access to get to them, because this is not here. But let's go ahead and put our hard lines on. They're still in their clamp positions, and I'm hoping I can just sort of put it in place here, kind of like that, and just start tightening it down. And then up here we'll leave them loose, because before we start this we have to bleed the air of the lines. So these are 17 millimeter, that's what size they are. So like I said, these are just going to be finger tight on top until we bleed them. And then the ones down here, we're gonna go ahead and tighten. Okay, so now what we gotta do is bleed the system. So to bleed the system, up at the injector, they're all loose. They're all like finger tight right now. I can move each one of them. What we need to do is crank the engine over a couple times until we start to see diesel fuel come out of these connections, these loose connections. Okay, we're just about ready to crank the engine over. I think we got a little diesel right here. I can smell it. So I'm going to tighten this one up. See how it's shiny like that? That means, see, oh, this one over here, number 4, has got some liquid coming out of it. We can go ahead and tighten this one up. Okay. Kind of want to give the starter a little bit of a break, because this one, And then number 5 doesn't have any yet. But I think what I'm going to do is probably try to start the engine. Maybe it'll take off. Okay. Alright, we're going to run a glow plug cycle. Glow plugs, I mean. Here's our glow. Maybe it will. Now, at this point while it's running, you gotta make sure none of these are leaking. Right now that one's still wet from priming it, but make sure these are, it sounds a lot quieter too. But I'm gonna go and tighten this up here and make sure these aren't leaking. I'm gonna set you down. Try, hopefully you won't fall off here. I'm really impressed how easy it started. You know, usually it would crank a little bit, and then cough a little bit. But man, this engine sounds amazing. Here, we'll give her a little gas. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful, no smoke. Ah, beautiful. I love this engine. Let's see if I can get that turbo to pick up.